social emotional learning as an umbrella. So the actual definition is the process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life. And I'll kind of get into that in a second, just with how it affects them in school, home, and in their communities. So it's really helpful to know, like, why would we do this? If we're going to implement something, we want to know what's the importance, what's the benefit to the kids. So I put out a newsletter, a part of the newsletter every month, where I kind of say what I'm doing in the classrooms, why it's important, how they can be incorporating it at home. So just the benefits are that it improves their number one, academic achievement, but outside of that, a safe and healthy school overall, and then their future, it helps them just develop these skills to be able to go out into the world and develop those necessary skills. And then it also impacts the educators that are working with them as well to make those connections. So this is the kind of the more bigger umbrella that I was talking about. So these are the core values of social emotional learning, and so you have the classrooms, the school, and then their homes and communities. And then under that is the curriculum itself and how we're teaching it, and then a school-wide practice and how we incorporate that, which we will talk about with our Tiger Paws in a second. And then hopefully that then goes into their families and their communities as well. So these are just examples of, I go into the classrooms and we all follow the same core values as a school. So the teachers are doing in morning meeting the same skill that we are doing for PBIS, and then the same skill that I'm going in and doing lessons for them. So I'll usually pick some activities for them to do and then a read aloud book for them to just kind of tie it in. So these are some of the ones from last year and this year that they really liked a lot. So I just thought I would show you just some examples of them. And then these are activities that I've had them do. And then I have a bulletin board that sometimes we put them on, like this garland I put on the windows leading up to the cafeteria last year, and the whole school added to the chain. But they like to either take it home or finish it at school and put it on the bulletin board and kind of wrap up our lesson and apply it to themselves. So this is my bulletin board. So I put all the core values at the top, and then I kind of rotate their work each month as they give it to me and if they're comfortable with me putting it up in the school. So this kind of just segues into, so there's social emotional learning as more of the umbrella, and this is where we actually teach the skill, and then the PBIS initiative, which we'll touch on in a second, is more the process of like, okay, now we're recognizing that you're implementing the skill. You're showing us that you can now apply what you're learning outside of my lessons, outside of what the teacher is teaching you. So SEL kind of PBIS is a part of SEL, if that makes sense. So this is kind of more just right off the PBIS website, because it is an actual like national initiative. I just wanted you to be able to kind of see it, and because sometimes it can be grant funded and a lot of things that it takes to really implement PBIS in a school. But the main thing is that it is all evidence based, and that just like social emotional learning, PBIS has been known to really improve an entire school climate. And so this year we really tried to tie it all in together as a school. So these are our core values. The kids are told, hey, we have this new one coming up. We do community meeting, and they do morning meetings. So every single day, each new month, they're saying, okay, this month we're doing respect. This month we're doing responsibility. Kindness, honesty, self-awareness, self-management, decision-making, which is the one we're on right now, perseverance, empathy, and courage. And these are really just like repeated over and over to them every morning on the announcements, the second they walk into the class, and then from the second that they leave every day. So I'll let Ken kind of talk about.
Thank you. And if you go back to those core values, right, those are things that just, those make great human beings, not just great kids, great students, but if we can have kids go through the elementary school and graduate from the elementary school in 5th grade and have all those different, character, core values instilled within them, they're going to be in really great shape for middle school. And the challenge is how do we keep it in front of them every day? How do we teach them, right, without it being kind of forced, right? And if you go to the to support and recognize students' efforts, right, the PBIS. So we kind of came up with this idea. It came from some of the stuff we borrowed from somewhere else, and it was but it all kind of was triggered because we have this book machine in our library, which some of you might have seen. It's this book vending machine. It's super cool, and it's been there. And the PTO, who also made this box, by the way, they wanted us to could you guys figure out a way that you could use it? And there's the vending machine right behind you now. And so we had the vending machine, and then we got the idea for these Tiger Paws, where basically all the staff was given a stack of these blue Tiger Paws. And what we do is we have a core value that we focus on every month. And whenever a staff member sees a student demonstrating the core value, not just the focus core value that month, but any of the ones that they've learned up to that point, they'll write a student a Tiger Paw. And the kids are really excited to come down, and they put them in the box. And then every morning we draw some Tiger Paws. And the kids whose names are drawn, they get coins to then go into the book vending machine in the library, and they get a book. And so that way and the teachers write what it was that the kids did, and we're announcing it every day. And the teachers are really kind of spreading out amongst all different kids are winning it. And it's just a way that we keep it in front of the children every day. And if we could go through so then we kind of weave it into our community meeting, and if you could jump one more. What we also do is with our community meeting, which we have every month, we then have teachers nominate a student who has done the best job of demonstrating whatever that core value is for that month. We recognize them at our community meeting. The kids get a certificate, and then what we also do at that meeting is that we then roll out what the new core value is going to be, and typically we'll have a class will volunteer to do a little skit to demonstrate that, and we sort of kick off the new one. And then to the next slide, please. This is just at our community meeting. It's we recognize those students, we roll out the new core value, and then we celebrate, right? It's we make it a very fun event. In those pictures, you just see teachers, but there were also students racing with teachers, and we make it a real fun event. So that's what we do at our community meeting, but that's how we kind of put, not closure, because we continue to carry over the other core values, but we roll out the new one. So I'll turn it over now to Mrs. Bobola.
So another piece to our social emotional learning is our morning meeting. So we take time every single day in our classrooms to come together as a group and just to help build our classroom community, and also give each student that sense of belonging that they need in our classrooms. So through our training, we've learned that morning meeting kind of has 4 components. It usually begins with a greeting. So with our greeting, we spend time talking about, the appropriate way that we greet someone. We look them in the eyes, we say their name. So we try to kind of mix it up and give them different opportunities to greet each other. Usually our morning meeting is in a circle so that we're all facing each other. We can all see each other's faces. So we'll kind of, practice turning to each other, or we'll make it a little game, or we'll throw a ball and say hello or good morning to each other. Some of these slides I like to use here and there. So one of them was a greeting race where they were timed, and they did it over a course of several days, where they got into their circle and then they said good morning to their classmates and things like that. So that's one component. Another is sharing. So we want students to feel like they're being heard in our classrooms, and they have lots to say. And so our morning meeting is a time where they can share their interests. They can tell us about their weekend. They can tell us how they're feeling. So if you go to, skip maybe 2 slides. One of the things that we do to share is called 4 corners. So I'll pick 4 corners of the classroom, and I'll name a certain emotion. So one corner could be you're feeling really excited today. Another corner, you're feeling annoyed today. Another, tired, whatever the case may be. So then they will go and visit whatever corner they identify with, how they're feeling. And this is great because I do have some kids in my class who are nonverbal. So this gives them their voice that they can't always express, to their classmates or to us as their teachers. And so they really enjoy that. And if they want to, they can tell why they're feeling annoyed, why they're feeling sad. And it actually gives me a little glimpse into what they might not tell me. They're not going to come in the morning and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. But then when I go over and I ask a few questions, oh, well, I'm feeling sad because mom and dad are away this weekend and, I wish I was with them or something like that. And they wouldn't always tell me that, during regular class time. So it does give them kind of that voice that they don't always get to share with others. Another one that we do, if you want to go to the next, is
This one,
notes.
Other way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Inside, outside circle. So when we're in our circle, we then form 2 smaller circles, and they're each facing each other. And then I might have them tell something fun you did over the weekend, or do you prefer to eat Doritos or Lay's chips, whatever. And then they tell their person that they're facing, and then we rotate our circle so they have the chance to share with several classmates. And then another component to our morning meeting is our activity. So sometimes the activity might relate back to our trait that we're working on for the month. And if you go to the next slide, obviously teachers love, that's the share circle again. Teachers love books. And so we might read a book that one more.
One more, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
A book that relates to our traits that we're doing, and these were just 2 of the favorites that my class had. We might, if you go to the next one, watch video clips. It was called Kindness 101. It's a video series put out by NBC News, and it's geared for kids, and it's actual news stories of kids. Like there were, kids that demonstrated honesty, kids that demonstrated kindness. And the kids really enjoyed watching and hearing about real children and things that they did that made a difference in the world. And it was cute because even at the end of them, they clap. And, it's just a nice, sentiment to, kind of carry with you throughout the day. I even went home and showed my own family because I thought it was just so great to see what kids can actually do and to make an impact on others. But then for activities, we also might just do something fun. So if you go to the next one, one of the activities that we learned in our training with Erin Moore through morning meeting was a game called Coconuts, which we played as a staff, and we enjoyed it. And so we brought it into our classrooms, and the kids really enjoy it. It's like a kind of a variation of rock, paper, scissors, except that they get to take on different roles if they win. So you start as a coconut, then you can become a palm tree, then a volcano, and then ultimately a king or a queen. And so the kids get really into it, and there's a lot going on, but it's really fun. And even my ones that are sort of reluctant to participate in this, they were into it. And if you kind of go to the different slides, we even have a little video to just share
This
with
one?
you how.
I think one
I think
more.
it's the next one.
One more.
Maybe one more. Sorry. There we go. So you can see the palm trees waving.
Yeah.
Volcanoes are erupting.
So funny.
Yeah. So then the final component is our message. So then, we come together and we just talk about our theme for that month. We might set a goal for ourselves as a class. Or just, the other thing that I like to do is related to kind of the tiger paws. I like to pick, at the end of our morning meeting, I pick a mystery student. So I write their name on the tiger paw and I tell them, I'm going to be watching you throughout the day and I want to see if you're able to demonstrate our, trait for our given month. So today was decision making, and they get really excited because then at the end of the day, if the person makes it, then they announce that they won their tiger paw, and they get very excited about that. So just, the morning meeting, it's just a really nice way to first practice our social emotional skills, but also it just sets a positive tone for our day, and the kids really enjoy it. So, yeah.
I have a couple questions. One particular about the morning meeting. Is it something that's the kids expect, that it's a normal part of their
Yeah.
routine? It happens the same time every day?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every
And
day.
It happens every day. Okay. And then from 3rd grade to 5th grade, or 2nd grade to 5th grade, does it look different in structure, I guess, from?
I mean, I think we all try to structure it, you know, in the same way, like, you know, through the trainings that we've had, they've kind of told us, like, you know, the different things that you want to try to do. But I mean, the activities and things like that might look different, I mean, depending on schedules and, you know, the way the day looks, but I think we try to incorporate all of these.
A lot of this comes from Responsive Classroom,
Right.
which is a national program. So they do have the same four core components
Yep.
that all morning meetings should have. So what a greeting looks like in kindergarten
Yep.
is going to look different than a greeting that they're doing in the 5th or 6th grade.
Right, but
Those
like-
same components.
They're all, the whole school is greeting at the same time in whatever way.
Maybe not.
Basically, yeah.
During morning meeting, there's a greeting component, whether it's all done exactly at 8:30,
Right.
probably not, but you start your mornings off with morning meeting. So at the beginning of the day, they're doing morning meeting.
I'm just curious, like, if the day does get restructured and morning meeting isn't in the morning, how do we make sure it's happening later in the day? You know, when things start to
Right,
get
right.
crazy, and that's, you know, that's just.
Yeah, right. And sometimes, you know, we might have to shorten it. You know, other days it goes a lot longer than planned. So I think we're kind of flexible in that. And then if we don't get a chance to, if something comes up, you know, whatever, we try to
Yeah.
still kind of, you know, go back to some of the things that let's remember, you know, let's set goals, let's focus on our traits and
I mean,
things.
I think it's important enough where, you know, to move it, you know, like, it should be this time set aside where everything just kind of stops, except for what we're doing here. And that's just been my concern with just making sure that it's not missed, that it actually still happens, that we're reserving this space to do the SEL, to have the morning meetings, to check in with our students before they do anything else with their day. And to lose that, or to say, you know, well, we don't really have time to do that, that, I would hate to see
Right.
that happen.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have enough time in your schedule now to, like, do you feel it, there's never, I know, there's never enough time, but I think, speaking for myself, this to me is more important than an MCAS score.
For sure.
Like,
For sure.
if our students aren't happy, healthy, and safe,
Yep.
they're nothing.
Yep.
You know, like, they need that. So do you feel like when your principal is looking into the schedule next year, do you think we need to look at more time? Do you think it's sufficient? And you might not know the answer, but please know,
Right.
like,
I
this
know
matters to
for
us.
us as fourth grade, I feel like the way our schedule is structured this year, yes, we do. We have a nice chunk of time in the morning so that we can make sure that it's happening. But then other grades, you know, I'm not sure what their schedule looks like, but yeah. I mean, I think that they did try really hard to make sure that each grade did have that time in the morning set out for that in particular.
Yeah.
I just want to mention, after we had our PD day, when Erin Moore came and did the presentation, and we did a survey of the staff, the reviews of her presentation were
Yeah.
very, very high. And I think that the teachers really appreciated. She brought in just some new information and a new approach, and there was 2 hours that was dedicated to it, and it went by so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she brought in some new strategies and new things that teachers could do, and you could tell based on their response to her, that how much
Yeah.
it's valued throughout the building by the teachers, and so.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like because this is only my second full year here, and I would say I've definitely seen a shift from last year, the importance from last year to this year, and the buy-in from just the staff as a whole. Like, we're really pushing the morning meeting from day one this school year. We made an entire, like, Google Drive for it and shared it, like, from the summer on, and said, you know, this is what we're gonna follow. Like, we go in and we kind of, like, observe sometimes. We make sure that they are implementing it. And it really seems like it's going much better than last year, I would say.
Do you feel like from a teacher perspective, it starts your day differently?
Yes.
Yeah.
On a personal note, right?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of just have that, I don't know, you have that good feeling going into your day, you know, so it helps me.
We want,
So I think it helps
you
them
guys
too.
to have a good start to your day.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just love the positive reinforcement. I love the Tiger Paw idea. I think that's so great. I think the kids, all the
Yeah.
positive reinforcement
Yeah.
you can give them to keep it up is fantastic.
One thing I really want to share, though, it's like the best part of my job is at the community meeting when we give out the certificates, and I call, like, I read the description that the teacher gives, and then I read the kids' name, the whole gym erupts. But the support that, like, none of these kids, only one kid won, but the kids go crazy, and the student that wins, you know that Price is Right show? I feel like the
Yeah.
host, because the kids come up and it's like they just won a new car or something. It's so
Yeah.
fun, but the support that you feel in the gym is really, really, it's great. It's
Yeah,
great. It's
I
fun.
agree.
We'd always love to see stuff like that. You can always invite us to
Yes.
Oh.
stuff
Please,
like that.
Oh,
please
I love it.
come.
Okay,
It's
deal.
very fun.
Yeah.
Sorry, Courtney, you wanted to.
Many
Courtney has a
earplugs,
comment.
but- Oh, sorry, Courtney.
No, it's all great stuff, but I love that idea of the kindness news for children.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it's
Now,
awesome.
if we could only find one for adults as well, it'd be great to
Oh,
have
there
it
is.
for adults
I
as well.
follow some online. I follow the good news. I don't even watch the other stuff.
That is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You know, the hope
I've
is
never
that-
heard of it, so
Yeah,
thank you
kindness
for
what you'll have to watch.
letting
the
us
hope
to know
is that
about
like
it.
they're taking
Yeah.
this home and they are sharing it, like, look what we did today, or look what I learned, or like, you know, I'm like, if you want to take this activity home, great. If you want to give it to me for the bulletin board, great. But I'd rather half of them take it home and be like, oh, this is the book we read today, this is what we learned, like, you know. And even just the idea of having a check-in in the morning, because a lot of kids need that, whether it's through morning meeting. Even kids have check-ins on their, you know, 504s, their IEPs, like things that we have to find a way to like allow them access to have. And so this automatically kind of creates extra for them. And you're right, it sets like the tone for the day. And like I love knowing that they're up there like getting settled that way. And then, you know, if there's a bigger need, they have access, they can come down, take a break, talk to me, whatever they need to do. But I think it does help a lot of what wouldn't normally come out, and hopefully they are taking it home and kind of sharing.
I think they are, and trust me, I hear about the community meeting every single time that it happens, and I hear about their friend, it's not them necessarily who brought it home, but you hear about, this one won this, and this one, you know, they do, they get really excited for it, even if it doesn't have to be them, they're excited for their friends.
Yeah.
I might start putting like a link to like the books we read, like in my newsletter, if you guys are interested. Be like, oh, you can watch this.
I
Sometimes
think
go
parents
home
would
and I'm like,
want that. I think that's a,
yeah, I'm
you
like,
know,
look
I
how
mean.
cute this book is. Like I go home and I watch it, like this is so cute.
Right.
Like,
Or even share the kindness link with us too, so we can see the stories, yeah.
I'm just elated that we have so much positivity, like just have that community in the classroom
Yeah.
where the kids are able to move up and around, share their thoughts, the check-in, and it's all is all, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's included in that. That's huge. And just the little things that we do, like the reward, the community meeting, right? We're raising these little humans that are going to go out in the world and try to make it a better place. So kudos to you all. Thank you so much for coming in this late at night.
Thank you.
But we truly appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing, and like I said, if you send out invites,
You always come.
They would love to come.
some of us,
Sierra comes for like very briefly, he's like, I'm out of here.
You guys get a little loud in there, I'm sure.
yeah.
We need earplugs sometimes. They
I'm
get
sure.
excited.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you guys so much.
You know, and I think for the past few years, we really had a focus on SEL. We really tried to work on that morning meeting. And you saw one of those slides that Erin put together for a morning meeting with a 4 component. That takes time to do as well, too.
Yep.
And it takes a buy-in for kids, so really happy that it's going on, and you can see the energy and the excitement
Yeah.
with it. Dr. Rosenthal, I apologize because you have to now come up and present on the special education determination under Part B of IDEA
bless you.
next. So that's a tough act to follow. But I'll, you know, every year, and Greg, we'll talk about it, every year, the Department of Education picks some different indicators to evaluate special education programs and do a determination. And I'm going to have Dr. Rosenthal present a little bit about where we are, some of the things we've done, and what we're going to do in the future to address some of these deficiencies.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank
So in your packet, I have a handout. One is, the first part of it is a letter we received from Department of Education that identifies where we're at as a department on some of their criteria. Afterwards, there is kind of an explanation, which we'll go through tonight. We're going to go through more of the explanation than all the rhetoric that they sent in that letter. But it is there for public documentation as well. A lot of this we'll be working on page 2, which is our rubric and our performance criteria, which the state identified a few areas, and we're going to kind of explain what that means. So our first indicator is the annual dropout rate. And if you look down onto page 4, I kind of explain it all. So we've earned full points for our annual dropout rate. That meaning we're fully in compliance. Our dropouts for special education students is not different than anywhere else in the state. In fact, we're at a 0%. Our next one is our 5-year cohort graduation rate, which was from 2021, meaning students who graduate from high school within 5 years of first attending high school. So if you were held back kindergarten through 8th grade, it wouldn't necessarily count against you. It's when you first enter high school in 9th grade and graduating within 5 years. The data shows that we are graduating 78.3% of our high school students who have a disability as of the year of 2021.
Just for that 1 year, not in
Just for that.
totality. Okay.
Correct, just for that 1 year. The state has put a lot of emphasis on the graduation rate. They, in fact, this is you multiply it 1.5, so there's a total of 6 points instead of 4, like some of the other categories. Meaning we only scored 3 points for that, which is half of what was allowable. Some of the data that we're looking at in considerations taken, there's a big impact of COVID, continuation of having your academic career another year. In fact, the Department of Ed gave a gap year recommendations to schools after COVID, compensatory services and that sort of thing. So we're looking into that, but there's one potential impact of COVID due to that. Our next one is the Special Education State Performance Plan Annual Performance Report, which is Indicator 3. We scored 2 out of 4 points on that one. Indicator 3 is participation and performance of students on IEPs on statewide assessments. I'm going to tag this into another category, so I'm going to put the explanation on that on hold. However, and I'm going to go over some data on that, but we only scored 2 out of the possible 4 points on that, meaning half of the points, and I'll have an explanation for that in just a second. Indicators 5 and 6. Reason why I'm collecting this, putting this together is how it's information is collected for students that are ages 5 in kindergarten to age 21, and how much time the students are with IEPs with students without disabilities. So we're looking at our inclusion practices in indicators 5. Reason why I'm tying this together, and if you look onto that page 4, I outlined some of our MCAS data. So students who have been identified with a disability in science for grades 3 through 8, 10% are meeting or exceeding expectations on MCAS, meaning 90% are partially meeting or not meeting at all. At the high school, it's 36%. For all students, in comparison, we have 30% for ages, grades 3 through 8, and 57% at the high school. Math, 11% of grades 3 through 8 are meeting or exceeding. 89% are partially or not meeting. At the high school, it's 13% for students with disabilities. In ELA, grades 3 through 8, it's 14% meeting or exceeding, and that would put it at 86% partially or not meeting, and at the high school it's 27%. I'm attaching this to indicator 5 because one of the things we're looking for in data points is our instructional practices. Students receiving instruction, the same instruction, to be able to do well on the MCAS. So we were also cited that there's a disproportionality of students who are receiving the same instruction as students without an IEP or without a disability. These are the things that we're going to be looking at as action plans for next year in professional development. One of the things that we discussed and we're continuing to vet out is champions of co-teaching. Having start small, really specific professional development with invested staff members who really want to champion co-teaching. And these would be sort of what we would consider islands of influence. If you have other people who have inclusion classrooms and they have questions, these would be the people you go to. These would be the people we refer to, say, why don't you go take a look at a co-taught lesson in this fourth grade ELA class? Because they have been provided very explicit instruction around co-teaching strategies and how to work with all students. So that's one of the plans for next year to address some of this. And being able to then expand it. And again, this is going to be a series of years of professional development. We want to expand it. We want to highlight it almost as they're doing with the SEL curriculum and the PBIS curriculum. Highlight it at a building meeting. Make it, a presentation that peers are giving to each other to really reinforce these practices.
So just to make sure everyone's clear, for those watching at home, what this is saying is that the gap between special education students performing on MCAS and typical peers, that gap's too big. We need to close those gaps.
Correct.
Which is why we're making the big push for looking at those ISSPs, looking at data, and using instruction to inform it. And the state obviously noticed that. And there's a second piece, the fact that they're really pushing the least inclusive, the least restrictive environment, and our ratio of students who are in C grid services versus B grid services is too great, and they want to see more kids in B grid and less kids in C grid in order to meet the criteria which is set up.
That is 100%.
Okay.
It's almost like you're reading off of,
Or as Beth said,
To do best for the kids.
to do best for the kids, yeah.
it's almost like you're reading off of.
Oh, did I read the next slide? Sorry. Sorry.
Well, before we
So-
move on, I just hear a lot about, like, for next year, for several years beyond. I feel like should be some sense of urgency where our administration's getting into classrooms and looking for the inconsistencies in instruction, if that's what you're saying is a focus.
So this year is definitely a data collection year, and administration has been, I've been doing numerous, we actually, Mr. Hayes and myself and Ms. Regetta and myself have done walkthroughs together and looking at things. Part of this is a professional development plan because, as the last 5 years have looked, and not in Douglas, but across the state, it's been one thing after another after another. It's, oh, here comes the next big thing. We're going to do it for PD at the beginning of the year. We'll touch base maybe in January, and then next year it's something different. What I really want to do is have resiliency and consistency, and if there's new staff that do come in, or if there is a new thing that we have to be flexible with, who knows if there's another pandemic that ever comes up, we need to have a structure in place to be able to address those new concerns. And I don't want to rush it, but it is something that is a priority. One of the things for this school year that we really wanted to focus on was defining programs. That was still in the works this year because part of it is getting stakeholder feedback. This has started to evolve into the development of next year, where we can also look to get stakeholder feedback now on co-teaching, because part of this is, and we're going to be meeting with each building principal for scheduling, because part of this is also a building schedule and being able to do that. Another is IEP service delivery grids dictates the schedule. So we have this year made a giant focus with our coordinators and our teams to be able to make it that it is more of an inclusion component than a pull-out component.
But you have to bring data to those meetings, and the data has to support the change, and then the parent has to sign off on the change from C grid to B
Correct.
grid.
Correct.
I
So,
think what's frustrating, and this isn't, it just is what it is. I personally know all the work that you and the coordinators and the teacher, like everybody's doing. But we hear this every year. And it's not, I understand, right? You need to know what your data is to make your plan. I think my hope is that when we're sitting here next year at this time, you're still sitting here, your teams, like our administrators are still sitting here, and we've made progress to some of these things. And it's frustrating for us because as a mom, it's frustrating to see like, yep, we've been talking about co-teaching for a long time. It's frustrating.
But even like in previous years, you know, people have come here and talked about how they were mitigating, you know, places like in MCAS scores. You know, we heard a lot about small group, and we're pushing small groups. And so to me, that's a way to move somebody from C to B and be in the classroom, be in a less restrictive environment with a small group setting within the classroom.
C grids removed from the classroom.
Right. But you're saying you want to move them more into the classroom in a least restrictive environment.
Correct.
So I had been under
But
the
to do that-
impression,
but to-
as a school committee member, that there was a push for small group within the classroom.
But you
Push-
can't move a kid, you can't move a student who's in a C grid service into a general education classroom, even if it's in a small group, without the change in the IEP.
Right, so that had been, over the last several years, we had heard that that was a tool that we had been using. And so that.
Or in-class instruction for general education students and inclusion students. But
Right.
you can't, but if a parent, if you have a student who's in a sub-separate program for, let's just say, keep it simple, ELA instruction, and they're in a class with 4 students receiving specialized instruction, you can't move them into a general education classroom unless you rewrite the IEP and the parent agrees to the change in the IEP.
Correct. I understand that part, but that had been a tool for like at least the last 3 or 4 years that we had been hearing about here.
So that is definitely one of the strategies of co-teaching. What I would like to do is expand it to further. There's 7 different identified strategies: co-facilitation, team teaching, stations teaching. I can go through all of them, and this will be something I present. Part of the wonders and the great research behind co-teaching is when you identify student strengths and abilities, and this is where the new IEP also comes in. You identify opportunities for them in the classroom to also excel and to shine. And this is where the co-teaching model that uses more than just the small group really helps support students social-emotionally, academically. When you identify that they're doing the same ability and skill work as others, just in a different way and differentiated. And that's really what some of the PD is really going to be about. I'll be more than happy to show you kind of the, because I've done this in the past, show you what the professional development is and kind of go over some of the strategies. Because yes, small group is one strategy, but it's not the end-all be-all. A lot of, and we talk about this consistently, is when you work in a small group, and maybe you just work with same ability types, you miss out on the rich conversations that go on with other peers. And also, they miss out on having some of the conversations with a diverse background and diverse abilities. So what we look to do is, yes, we want to intervene when appropriate, but also allow them to spread their wings when also appropriate. So generalize the skills. So that's something absolutely. So small group is one of many, but we can definitely go over that, and I will be more than happy to do that.
I think my thought was just that it seemed that there was a piece of that happening already. And, is there something within that piece that could be shifted,
Yes, yes, and part of my observations has been that, I've taken the data, but I also have done my own observations, got my eyes on things. And there are absolutely pockets of things that are working, but the data also doesn't lie, and things that we have to address. And things that we can address now, to do it on the fly is difficult, we can make recommendations and suggestions. Doing on the fly is a little difficult without structured PD. And also, that's why I would really like to start small and highly focused PD with very invested staff members.
That is the key, invested staff
was
members.
just-
If you have someone who does not want to co-teach, it's going to.
But that's changing the model. Good core instruction is something that we focus in on every single day, and that's something that, the principals all the time are giving feedback to staff on in terms of different Tier 1 strategies, different Tier 2 strategies, our BCAP, our DCAP, all that Tier 1 stuff is happening. Changing the philosophy of inclusion and getting the right matchup between a general education teacher and a special education teacher and how they work together. That takes some time to develop, and we've seen a lot of turnover in our special education staff, so we're nurturing those relationships and building those relationships. So some of this is focusing in on that model. Some of that is working through the IEP process and the team meeting process to move kids out of C grid into B grid, provided the data does it. But the overarching piece is everything is around good core instruction.
Do we have a district statement on inclusion? Like a belief about inclusion?
I don't think so. It's not one of our metrics.
I don't know if you have anything from the special education.
No, I just want, maybe that's something we should look at developing as we,
Part of our mission statement is
right, but like,
educating all students.
talk to, maybe during this professional development, we talk to the teachers and general ed and special ed, like, how do we envision inclusion? What does it look like? Because to me, what I've always been taught is you walk in a classroom and you don't know who the special ed teacher is and who the
Yes,
general education
correct.
teacher is.
Yes.
Everybody, my kids didn't know they were on an IEP. They just, that was the teacher.
And part of this is, part of the Champions of Co-Teaching is that the training is for special ed and general ed together. They have to be
Work
together
together
and
in
do
a
the
team.
strategies. I always say this, content teachers, they're the master of the content, the reason why they're licensed for that, and they understand the content to a level that they can look and be like, oh, here's another way to look at this problem, or here's another way to, look at reading comprehension. Special education teachers definitely are great, but they're looking at a differentiated instruction, modifying of curriculum, accommodating, looking at different strategies to partner with general ed in the co-taught. So that's sort of kind of what we're doing with the Champions of Co-Teaching is, this is a team effort, and it comes down to simply, how do you even set up your classroom? Is there a general ed teacher's desk and not a special ed teacher's desk? Do they get a table? Because then that's not a very welcoming environment for a special ed teacher. And the students would recognize that as, okay, my homework goes to the general ed teacher, special ed teacher is just, whatever it
Helper.
is, helping.
The helper teacher.
There's a whole mindset that has to go into that, and that's part of the professional development. Just using language such as our classroom. We have done this instead of I or she. It's a very inclusive environment when you use different language. And it's kind of the professional development that really needs to be worked on together, and it comes back to that investment. And Sharon. Sorry, I know that it is frustrating, and as much as we want to change it tomorrow. And
No, I
just
mean,
wanna-
I think that there's a lot more transparency now than there was 3 years ago, where we heard that, all this stuff was ramping up, and, so I appreciate having more transparency, but, you always hope that you're further along than where you are, but.
We hope you don't feel beat up when you come and talk to us, because I think we all know you're trying, how hard everybody's trying to work, but it's just, I just hope you're here after July 1st. That's what I.
We'll be here.
I also
I'm on
love
record.
the idea that you want invested teachers who want to do this and can really model it for other teachers of how well it can work. Because if you just put people together, you're doing
That
this now,
collaboration is key.
it can absolutely fall apart, and then people go, see, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And part of it is the scheduling, being common planning time. Yep. Being able to not just run on the fly and say, hey, what are we doing today? Sit down in our lesson and say, we're going to use this strategy for the first 10 minutes, and then we're going to break into this strategy. Maybe we are going to go to a small group. Maybe we are going to do stations. A lesson should be very fluent, but it takes a lot of collaboration to do that. So that's something I'm working with the building principals. So I've started to set up meetings now. Tomorrow I'll be up at the high school. We're meeting with Mr. Hayes next week at the elementary school, and we're setting up for the middle school and the primary school the weeks after. Because they've also made this a priority where they're saying we're going to schedule special ed first, which is
That's the key.
it's a hurdle that I don't have
That's
to
the key
climb
to
over,
everything
which is really
is-
nice. So that's great. And I want to give kudos to the principals, too.
That's the key. I'm sorry. It's the key. If you don't have the special ed built in correctly in your schedule,
You're going to be so off the whole
it's horrible.
It is.
thing.
So, sorry for that segue. We'll move back to the report. So we talked about indicators 5 and 6. That is just the special education settings. It's 2 times the points for that. The state also realizes if you don't have good practices of co-teaching, and if it's disproportionality, it's going to impact MCAS scores. You will never be able to close those gaps. So that's why it's ×2 there. The next indicators for B, 9 and 10, is disproportionality of discipline. We have no finding of that, meaning we're not disproportionately suspending special education students or other discipline. Special education performance report, this is indicated as 11, 12, and 13. So I had to submit this to the state, I believe, within 3 weeks of starting. So looking at some of our indicators for this, it's compliance to special ed timelines. I've kind of talked to the committee a few times about this. We were out of compliance. One specifically, and one of the reasons why we have a 0% for indicator 12. I signed a IEP for a preschool student, indicator 12's preschool compliance, in July when they had turned 3 during the school year. So I had to report honestly, and I said, we were out of compliance there, and we're going to make better. So to talk about these indicators, I have really worked on the policy and procedure manual, really worked with the coordinators to ensure timelines, with the staff discussing. We've done a lot of professional development on that. Again, that was one of my priorities this year. We can't do anything without compliance, so wanted to make sure we were in compliance. We will have a full manual before the end of the year. I'm hoping actually in April, when our tiered focus monitoring on-site from the state comes out, so I can show them how much work we've done, because it is going to be one of the things they will identify. So my hope is it will be completely vetted out in April, and I'll have a document that I would be more than happy to share with the committee as well. Indicators of noncompliance, number of findings for PSM or PRS, that's the problem solution, the old problem solution program review from Department of Ed. This is when parents feel that the district is out of non-compliance. They report it to the state. The state asks for evidence as to the district if there was compliance. So we had a total of number of findings of 13.2. I want to clarify why it's 0.2, but there's at least 13 identifiers of noncompliance last year.
A partial one?
So we only, I think so, I just didn't want to misspeak.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That we were compliant for
Like one thing,
0.8 of it and not the other 0.2. I just didn't want to misspeak on that one. And I've actually asked the state for data on this. I'll be more than happy to share it out once I get it. They're a little overwhelmed themselves, this department.
yes, they are.
That where were the findings? What part of the year? Was it, we're looking more at the middle end, that sort of thing. So once I get that data, I will. I can tell you that we resolved 2 more this year. I'm not sure if it's, the report was requested for last year. I was able to provide the evidence in the report this year. So my hope is that part of the 13 is what they requested, and we don't get dinged for 2 this year. Because I can tell you that I did say that we were out of compliance, we did training and that sort of thing, but it was about issues from last year.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if there are going to be findings in next year's report card based on a previous year's, if you know what I mean.
Yep, I'm tracking.
The good news is the timely submission of the correction of noncompliance.
Timely.
Timely. We had 0 findings, so we got completely 4 points. So
Do you know where you're at with PRS complaints for this year?
we have 1 right now where they're requesting a local report,
Yep.
and that's it. So we have had 0 findings from anything that was this year. As I said, there was,
Yeah.
We are tracking, so we're good.
No, but it goes to climate of the district. too.
Yes,
Like, if you're getting a lot of PRS complaints, people are not happy with how things are going.
so that's sort of also one of the things in the next steps, and that's something that the department has really focused on. We're holding a lot of CPAC meetings, almost 2 a month, we're averaging. Part of that is to have these discussions. Additionally, we're trying to make efforts to make the process collaborative and making sure families are part of it, because we might have proposals or we might have opinions on things that might differ from parents or families, and that's okay, and there's mechanisms for that that you can use, but also we want to continue having those conversations. Just because we're in a disagreement doesn't mean we can't talk about it. So that's sort of really what we have focused on as a department, to really build that relationship with the community, and ongoing, and we'll continue to expand it as we move forward year after year, so.
It's positive.
No, and I think if I can share like a really cool story of a family that came to CPAC and was really excited. They thought that we started the new IEP because their child was invited to the IEP meeting, and their child is not of that typically you don't invite the child to 14, as of like how it is now. And the family was so excited to have their child at the table and have that conversation. And I know it brought up like other things that you were going to look into, like how do you discuss that your child is on an IEP and what's appropriate and how do you do those things. So I think there's definitely a lot of good things happening at the CPAC meeting. I think people are seeing the effort that's being placed in. Staffing.
And hopefully also that's one of the things that we can do in scheduling, is ensure that
Yep.
we're effective and efficient with our staffing, because we know that there is a lack of staffing out there. So how do we make sure that we can be in our best place possible and with our scheduling? Talking about CPAC, I do, before, in case there's any questions, there's one more thing. We are having the new IEP training next Wednesday. I'll be going over the new IEP, so I want to put a shout out here. It's going out into the principals' newsletters. I sent them an email, and there's a 1 call going out on Friday with the link. But we will be doing the new IEP training. Tomorrow I'm sitting down and I'm going to do, I worked with Scott, and we're doing YouTube clips of the new IEP, and we're going to put it on the website, so.
That's phenomenal. Just to get that information out to the families, I think is huge, right? Education is the key to everything, and that's going to be a huge change with the IEP.
And they can access it when they can access it,
Yep.
not when it's convenient for us, for them to
Correct.
access it.
So Ms. Cardinal, who was the coordinator who had the student come and run the meeting, she's worked with the elementary school department, special ed department today in expanding it, almost like an Islands of Influence. This really worked for the student. How can we incorporate more of that, so. So just in total, we had earned 25 out of 38 possible points, meaning we were 65.8%. The outcome of that is we have to dedicate part of our special education grant funds to address these. So when that sum comes up, the funds come up this summer, I have to dedicate a certain portion of that to really address some of these issues. Some of the impact of that is we can't use those funds for other things that we might have budgeted for. So we want to make sure that we really do some great professional development, so next year I can report out that we're a little bit better, if not a lot better.
So one thing we've always tried, we want to celebrate the great stuff. We also want to recognize that there's always work to do in any district, in any organization. We knew we were a compliance mess last year. I got the emails, I responded.
We all got the
We all
emails.
got the emails.
We all heard.
We were a compliance mess last year, and we knew that, and it's reflective here in this report. It's great, the work that Dr. Rosenthal, Sue Dolan started it last year, and their teams have done to get us out of that compliance mess. It took a lot of work just to dig us out of the hole from last year. The instructional piece and the pushing kids out of C grid into B grid, you want kids in that least restrictive environment. We say it all the time, least restrictive, least restrictive, least restrictive.
And it's the law.
It's the law. And it's the law. And I can understand why sometimes parents want a little bit of a more restrictive environment, and that's sometimes where those discussions happen in team meetings where we're pushing for B, parents want C, and that happens. The instruction piece is something we talk about every single meeting we have, about looking for good, solid core instruction and making sure that's happening inside classrooms. You heard Erin talk about it, you heard Ashley talk about how they're trying to weave those threads all throughout the general ed curriculum, but I wish I could say we could do it all in a year.
It takes time.
And as soon as you solve one thing, like we finally got the IEP down after 20 years, and now they're changing the whole IEP.
They're just changing the form.
They're changing they're changing the portion of it, but, and that's what happens. You make it sound so easy. People.
That's what I hear all the time. It's just the format.
But again, thank you to Dr. Rosenthal and his entire team and all the staff who've been invested to dig us out of where we were.
And Greg,
But kids.
you're just also like throwing in that all this is happening while you're mentoring all people that are coming in, like, to new positions and learning new things, and like, there's a lot of learning curves for everybody too. And there's support for mentoring for this teacher.
Thank you. And I look at it like we all learn together. So I think that, as I said, there's a lot of good things that are happening here. We have a lot of staff. The department has a lot of dedicated staff.
Yep.
And really, that's what the strength of the department is. And just like students, we're going to use that strength to overcome our deficits. So, we already have that dedicated staff. They're talented. They just need a little more direction. We'll do that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
I'm just thrilled that we knew, right? This is not a surprise. At least from my perspective, this is not a surprise. Okay, the fact that you're not running for the hills, but I think the positivity from our most critical and vulnerable students that we have to educate in our district, they're happy. The parents are happy, right? Because we got inundated. It was an inundation of where we were to where we are today, and your mentoring of the staff's receptiveness to your practices and everything else. I know next year we'll be in a much better place, but we understand there are going to be some still anomalies that are still going to be there. And so that's just being mindful to remind, because we are going to have some new members, at least one new member, come on next year. But just be mindful to remind, because some of us might forget, but I won't forget because this was a key topic for a couple of years. But there are going to be anomalies. And so there is going to be like, oh, okay, and just remembering where we were, and I think that's pretty vivid in my memory, it's etched there, where we were to where we are today. I know it doesn't change, doesn't happen overnight, right? And so we understand that, but your impact, I just know has been beneficial to the staff that you have underneath you. So I thank you for doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. Bring us the good stuff, bring us the bad stuff. We
Bring us your
understand.
needs too. Bring us what you need.
Absolutely. I need time. That is the greatest resource in this entire world. I need more time.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Mr. Ringett was going to talk about the MyCap. Get some good news, some progress of some things we're looking at.
So, that's like putting the main events first and the warm-ups, you know, towards the end here. I'm just glad I didn't have to follow the elementary school. Always glad when I don't have to follow them. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. So I'm here to talk about a MyCap piece to kind of tell you what the acronym means. It stands for My Career and Academic Plan. Okay? So it's a very personalized plan for each and every student. The way we kind of looked into this was we received a grant through the Innovation Career Pathways structure. One of the caveats to that grant is the fact that we now embed ourselves into this MyCap plan. They want to make sure that we're using these pathways to help our students grow, basically, from, at minimum, a freshman in high school through their senior year and perhaps beyond. What's nice about the MyCap is that it's actually designed to start even earlier than high school. They want to, technically, they would like us to start in grade 6 with our students.
Yep.
And start with, what are you thinking about in grade 6? Now, hopefully, I know that students now are much more aware than, let's say, we were back in the 80s or 90s, when we may have been in grade 6, and then we're not thinking we're all going to be Michael Jordan and move on from there, and that's our
We're all
mindset.
dating
But-
ourselves.
But ultimately, the fact that we are encouraged to start at an earlier age to help them see the full picture at an earlier age is very beneficial. Before I continue about what MyCap is, I do want to give credit where credit's due. Jared Stand, one of our history teachers, Krista Petrelli, one of our ELA teachers. Before I get to the guidance department to follow up with that, the two of them have presented phenomenal insights to the MyCap program, and I can't thank them enough for their contribution and their involvement in the process. Kristen O'Brien, Lindsay Ryan, and Jill Carpenter from our guidance department, they are also heavily involved, and again, I can't appreciate their efforts enough. They've all been to, so with MyCap, there are training sessions. They've all been to the first session. The first session is very much kind of where are you at this point type of session. And then they give you a little bit of homework, and they go back in a couple of weeks, actually next week, to kind of go through the second phase of the training, which is, all right, now you know what you have. Now you have an idea of to where you want to go and what you want to do, and we'll see what comes out of that second training. We're still in planning phases, so there's no concrete guideline per se just yet. The way it was presented to me by the group, they are looking at, they would like to implement this as soon as possible next year. But they've also given some room to say, we want this done right, we want this done, with fidelity. We want to make sure that everybody is on board. We want to make sure it's grade appropriate. What we're doing at each grade really does work with each grade so that by the time they are a senior in high school, they're working through financial literacies, and they're working through the fact that they've already had some interview skills, and they've already had some of those types of things coming out of it. What's nice about this is that the three main questions it kind of answers is that the students will know, having kind of a sense of identity of who they are, where they are, and where they would like to be.
Yep.
Those are basically the three main issues that they're going to kind of cover. Some of this goes through SEL. Some of this will go through other avenues. It does kind of touch upon a lot of these details, which is really nice. One of the nice things that I do like about this is that it is a multi-year approach. It's not just, we're going to hit you with a survey when you're a freshman, we're going to hit you with a survey as a sophomore, we're going to see where you are as a junior, and then we'll start talking to you a little bit as a senior. It doesn't do that anymore. That type of methodology is long gone and long out the window. There's a database system that helps track it. Right now we have Naviance. We are looking into fuller options that are more complete for what we need, which is nice. But the fact that we already have a system in place that has a database, that has things like that in there, I was told by the group that just by having that and some of the other things we have in place, we were actually ahead of a lot of our other schools that were at this initial training. So the reports I was getting were all positive, that we are in currently a good place, but the team itself sees that potentially what it can be and how we can get there. And again, we're in planning stages, so I don't want to give away too many details that they've shared with me just yet, because I don't want to say something and then all of a sudden like, oh, we can't quite do that, or something like that. But we are looking into potentially scheduling, how we're going to schedule it into next year, how we're going to have the staff buy in as to how they're going to work with the students, how they're going to embed it into their own curriculums, things like that. So again, planning stages and part of the process.
When you talk about this happening next year, and you mentioned like possibly as early as 6th grade, when you talk about next year, are you talking about having some of this happen in the middle school next year, or starting in the high school and then moving to the middle school?
So obviously I don't have a whole lot of pull for dictating what happens in the middle school, other than just
thought was going to be like
asking
is
Dr.
Mr.
Vieira, hey,
Ryan
Dr. Vieira,
part
can we
of
do
this
this?
conversation, part of this planning?
But we would, in a perfect world, I would, obviously propose it to Dr. Vieira and say, can we expand this out beyond our walls of this building? Right now, our goals are just grades 9 through 12. We're looking at making sure our 9 through 12 students are taken care of, and that each one of those students can sit there with artifacts at the end of their time with it and say, this is my, my CAP portfolio. This is what I've contributed to it, and this is what I'm able to show for it. I've gone through this. I've done this. I've had a resume writing experience. I've had an interview experience. I've had interaction with people about credit card debt or
Personal finances.
trying to get a loan, things like that. Taxes.
It's life skills. It's a phenomenal program, and you have to start it.
So I wanted Mr. Ringet to present this. I know it's still in the infancy phases of it, because it segues into the video, which we're going to show in a minute. But pushing this, the vision is to have the 6 through 12, because
You
we
need to
all
do it at the
need to
6th
do
grade
it.
level, because
you
it makes
know-
a determination by the time they get to the high school.
Correct. It
For
helps
their
them make
courses.
that determination. But it would be almost impossible to implement this at the middle school until we have that second counselor on board. So now we have the second counselor on board, which is still interviewing for. It makes rolling this out into the middle school much, much easier, because instead of one person doing the work, we now have two people doing the work. Mr. O'Brien's interviewed, I think he's on a second round of interviews with two people this week, so we're still looking to see who we can get to fill that, but
So he would be part of the conversation of the planning then? Like, he should be part of
he
this?
he will be part of the conversation. Again, Mr. Riget came and told me about this, what, about 2-3 weeks ago?
Yep.
And I said, let's get it on the agenda to talk about it, because it segues nicely into the video, which we're gonna show.
I am so thrilled that the conversation has started somewhere.
Yeah. So-
But there is also a need, like you
There's a-
said,
there's a
in the
massive-
middle school, and I think it will help them once they get here.
Correct.
And so, if that's the ultimate plan, let's, have that full table discussion,
That time is just so short from 6th grade to 12th grade. It's way too short.
You mentioned a grant that then kind of like prompted this.
Correct.
Do we need to continuously get the grant in order to continue this program, or do we have to work it into the budget later on? How does that kind of work?
Okay, so the grant we received was through the Innovation Career Pathways program. That grant is specifically outlined for manufacturing and manufacturing programs. We received that grant,
Last year, in the last year, I think.
it was,
Last
yeah, we
year,
applied for it
last
last
spring.
year, and I believe it finally came to fruition this year. So we are looking to spend funds to boost our manufacturing programs through Project Lead the Way and other types of programs, because, yes, we are an academic building, but we don't just service academic students. Some of the students are more hands-on. They want to work in a manufacturing setting, and we don't necessarily provide the same tools as some other schools, but now with grant money, we can actually bring in some of those tools. We can get potentially, like like I mentioned a few months ago, an aerospace engineering program, or other types of manufacturing programs going, so students can work on building things and work on that stuff. The fact that we are in that grant just kind of propels us into the MyCap experience. MyCap is something that the Department of Ed is going to be pushing out, and is actually anticipated to be pushed out to just about everybody in the next couple of years.
Okay.
We're just more on the forefront of it because of that.
So moving forward, is that like other budget line items that we need to be in consideration, or once it's implemented, you feel like we're just?
A lot of it comes down to, I have a feeling that it's not going to necessarily pop up as a severe budget item.
Okay.
With the exception of maybe professional development type stuff or things of that nature. Being able to provide time for planning and implementing, things like that. I think that's where the most of the work's going to come from. And making sure that our database is up to date. That's the other piece.
Because it's a portfolio that's inside the database that they're able to access and use, and it's a great program. So, I mean, the fact that we're starting it, yes, we need to implement it at the middle school, because again, it's the building blocks that gets them to the high school to be able to go and explore.
100%.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I'm just excited. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And this segues nice into the promotional video. One of the things we all know is that we've seen a lot of students leaving the 8th grade from Douglas to go to other places. There's so many great things going on at the high school that families just don't know about, that provides kids so many different pathways and opportunities. This Cartoon EDU company approached us, and what they do is they make promotional videos for schools, marketing videos for schools. And Mr. Ringett, along with a bunch of our students, put together, narrated this video. We've already shared it out in our newsletters. When they did grade 8 orientation for grade 9 students, it was shown there. we're going to show it at our morning meeting in grade 5 for students to look at, and we're going to have high school students come down and meet with grade 5 students to say, hey, here's what's going on at the high school, so many great things for your pathways.
good idea.
And we're going to do the same thing in grades 6, 7, and 8, show it at one of their version of morning meetings or homerooms, and have high school kids come down to 6, 7, and 8 and talk to them. But the video is about 4 minutes long, and it kind of highlights what we offer here. It's entitled A Hands-On, Rigorous, and Flexible Education.
We know that the end of your time at Douglas Middle School presents parents and students a choice they'll have to make for the next 4 years of their students' education. Here in Douglas, the opportunities at our high school mean this doesn't have to be a high-stakes decision between a traditional education and a vocational and technical education.
In fact, we believe Douglas High provides our students the most opportunity, flexibility, and equity for their educational growth, no matter whether your student will use a high school to prepare for their career or as a next step to their higher education.
This short video will introduce you to the opportunities only Douglas High School can provide your student and how you can make the most of your student's next 4 years of learning.
First, Douglas High has more opportunities for hands-on learning than ever before, and these programs continue to grow.
It starts with our Innovation Pathways program. This offers a career in technical education focused in advanced manufacturing.
Students can enter this program in the 9th grade and build their high school course of studies directly into a career after high school. They'll navigate a curriculum designed by Project Lead the Way, focused on engineering and STEM education.
The pathway also provides courses in manufacturing, an internship, and a capstone project. And students can leave high school with 3 certifications for their career, MACWIC Level 1 and 2, as well as OSHA 10. The student-specific hands-on learning continues through our many Douglas High School competency designations. These provide structured courses of study for students who have a particular focus or a focus towards a specific college major. These designations include both college and career prep choices, such as business, STEM, health science, culinary arts, child development, and industrial arts.
Students who complete the program will earn this designation on their diploma, but will have already increased their academic achievement through a focused capstone project, internships, work study, and community service. And that's just one way Douglas High School students can get a more rigorous experience during their time as a Tiger.
They can also straighten their transcript and get a head start in college.
We offer 14 advanced placement courses that can receive college credit and boost the profile of their college applications. Making our education at Douglas High School more hands-on and more rigorous also comes with more flexibility.
Staying in your home district to be a Douglas Tiger doesn't just keep you connected with your community, it strengthens those connections. And while each of these programs have different requirements, they're available to all of our students, not just a select few. We wrap this education with special education services, active clubs, athletics, and theater as social and emotional support that supports every student where they are, not based on some select status.
This leads to better outcomes for our students, who in recent years have directly entered careers in plumbing, auto repair, welding, and construction, to name a few, while some have gone off to 4-year universities such as Princeton, Harvard, Northeastern, Syracuse, UMass Amherst, Mass Maritime, and the U.S. Naval Academy. It can be hard to decide in just the 8th grade where your educational journey may take you.
That's why at Douglas High School, we've ensured all the pathways for our students' success are here.
That came out great, yeah, that came out.
Again, I just set up, Mr. Ringett and his team put that together with the help of Dave from the company for it, and I think it just rolled out. We started this, I think, around November, and you finished it 2 weeks ago, a week ago? So we're gonna roll that out, again, just a way to market and promote the great things
Very
happening.
timely for some decisions that are coming out this month.
That was the plan as we started.
Just saying.
Yeah, there was a little bit of thought in there, too. So we wanted to get this out as a lot of our 8th graders are making decisions, and we showed it at the course selection for 8th graders, and again, having some of those kids come down and meet with our middle school kids is great. We own the rights to that forever, so we could
That's key.
That's key. key when we met with the gentleman, so we own that. We already have, I think he told me on Monday, 150 views, but now we're just going to try to find ways to promote it. And we know what we did this year, but we also know that a lot of the decisions for kids making choices from 8th grade and 9th grade really starts as they leave the elementary school in 5th grade and get to the 6th grade. So that's why, again, tying this all in, that MyCap that we talked about, the adding on the adjustment counselor / guidance counselor to create that 7-year plan is important. This video kind of highlights that we can be competitive with other schools in the area, and that we do have a lot to offer all of our kids here. So we're excited to share that with the committee and push it out to the community and ultimately, hopefully, keep more kids in town. And that piece where they said keeping kids in the home district is so important.
Maybe reach out to the town manager and see if they put it on their website there.
I shared it with the town manager, the Board of Selectmen and FinCom, the chairs of each, and they replied back, great, but I'll ask Matt if he can add it to our website.
'Cause I think if it was on the town website about the good things about the school, it also goes to for our budget, right?
Yep.
And
Good
so I think there's an opportunity there, right? The good news story.
I just like we were talking about earlier. More good news.
14 AP classes in Douglas?
Yes.
Is that a lot for our school size?
No.
I think it's better than in Rhode Island, and I know because I looked at every high school when we were picking which town we were going to move to, and one of the top high schools in Rhode Island has 3. And when I saw Douglas had a lot, that was like, not the deciding factor, but we were kind of like, okay, you jump the border and you get so much more.
Sorry, you don't,
Do you want me to?
Come on up.
just curious.
For some reason, I knew I shouldn't have left. So, there are so many opportunities through advanced placement. We all know that. And when people hear AP, they're thinking, oh my goodness, that is the top of the top academic students like you wouldn't believe. 14 is a good number for us to have. I'd like to see more. I'd like to be able to promote more. But at the same time, what doesn't get enough recognition is Project Lead the Way. Project Lead the Way classes are very similar in style to AP classes. They don't get the same recognition. They don't get the same notoriety that you might think. But they are accepted as classes at places like Wentworth, WPI, and schools like that. And that's something that's not necessarily spoken of. And so when we say we have 14 AP classes, that is a great number for us. But what it doesn't say is that we also offer Project Lead the Way classes, which also help those students that are in more of a technical field. So I would feel like I wasn't giving it its fair share in due process if I didn't also elaborate on that.
No, that makes sense.
So will colleges accept that as a credit? Okay, even, there's no like exam or?
They have, it's not the same as AP, where AP culminates in everybody sitting down in front of a computer, taking a test and moving on, and
Yeah.
hopefully getting a 3, 4, or 5. Project Lead the Way is a little different. So it ends more as to like, what can they create? What have,
Oh, okay.
things like that. What do we have for grades through our, projects and some capstones and things like that. So they are all kind of very good avenues if students want to take advantage of those. So
They have kind of like equivalent rigor, but in different ways to express that.
correct.
The 3 Project Lead the Way pathways are engineering, engineering, computer science, and biomedical, correct?
Yeah, and we're pushing in, we're pushing more manufacturing.
Correct, that's what we're doing now, we're doing the engineering one, we're doing year one of it. And again, we were the last school in the valley to bring Project Lead the Way here, so, really through Josh Romano's side of the work, years ago, and it took us a while to build up to it. We had the grant, we had to have the capacity inside to have the staffing to run it and to fund it, so we were able to use grant money to take it off. The manufacturing piece of it, and the engineering, is relatively inexpensive to do it, as is the computer science. You have to have the software for it. The biomedical is the expensive one to run, because you can't just use that stuff
Over and over again, yeah.
over and over and over. There are more consumables for it. And then you have to train the staff. To teach each of the courses, staff are going through an 80-hour training course in order to be able to teach one section of the Project Lead the Way. So Brett Mamaris, who's teaching, I don't know, what's he teaching next year?
We're trying to get aerospace engineering off the ground, and
So he just
literally.
completed an 80-hour course to be able to teach year one of that program. So a lot of cool stuff.
Well, the key is having the staff that wants to do it, right? So that's the key to it. So if they're vested in it and want to do it, and so I'm glad to hear that the teachers do want to do this. Because I think it pays huge dividends, the opportunities for children that don't want to do the normal standard college prep AP, right? To give them places to go and use their hands, I think is awesome, so.
If I may just add one little thing that's a little unrelated. When I went and sat back down, I got the update that the boys did win their basketball game tonight.
Woo-hoo, yay!
And are moving on
Yay!
to 8
Yes.
for the MIA tournament.
Very exciting.
Very good.
Good news.
More good news.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And finally, just a brief update on the FY25 preliminary budget since we last reported here. Principals have gone back and are doing further line item reductions. We had that delta of about $280,000. They're going back and looking at individual line item reductions. Ms. Keegan and I have sat and looked at how can we further utilize revolving accounts to offset that. We presented, was it this week or last week?
Last week.
Last week, presented last week at Finance Committee, and it was my first, it was my first Finance Committee. There was a lot of love in that room.
There is.
It was a good, positive meeting about our budget, and they were thrilled to see some of the great things we're doing, and we're confident we're going to be able to close that gap. So we have one more meeting, then we have our public hearing, so we'll bring forth more information, but right now, principals and directors are looking at doing those line item reductions. It's only been, I think, 2-3 weeks since that last meeting, so we still need a little bit more runway to look at our stuff. Hopefully, we're done with snow and ice removal, so, that always frees some stuff up, and with the warmer temperatures, we see some better things on the horizon. So we'll bring that information to you, and our public hearing is at the April 3rd school committee meeting. So we sprinkled in some, things to celebrate and some things we need to work on, because we all have things, that we need to improve on. But again, happy with the great stuff that's happening here and highlighting and showcasing it.
Absolutely.
That's all I have tonight. If people have questions? All right. Thank you.
So much. Moving over to the school committee and subcommittee reports for accounts payable. I do believe that I signed the first two, and the last one I think was you. So, warrant number 32 SCH 24 and 32 SCHL 24, warrant dated February 8th and 9th in the amount of $75,135.12. There were 11 items in this batch, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Next batch, next warrant is 33 SCH 24, 33 HCHL 34, and HS 24-6 in the amount of $70,922.11. There are 8 items on this, and there was nothing out of the ordinary.
Warrant 35 SCH 24 and 35 SCHL 24, warrant date 2/29 and 3/1. 10 batches in the total dollar amount of $183,935.07, and there was no concern.
Thanks. Moving on to the consent agenda, the February 7th meeting minutes. If nobody has any issues with this, I would be, for the meeting minutes, I'd be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the February 7th, 2024 school committee meeting minutes.
Motion made by Monique, seconded by?
Meg?
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Moving on to the school business and operations managers report. Courtney, we have some FY24 transfers and reclass?
Yes, I do. I'll do I guess it's the reclasses, I think, in your packet first, so I'll start with that. We have reclassifications we're getting caught up on. The first one is just moving from a teacher line to para line within the FY24 Title I grant. The second one was, we had a lightning strike in July, and then we had two, torrential rain and wind damage things. So when that happens, oftentimes, we have to get the work done. We have to get things taken care of. So we have to pay for it out of either school choice general fund, and then when the claim is done, we move, we reclassify the expenditure to the insurance account. That's what that is. The next one's down saying various employees. That's another one of those one digit. Remember, I had some before. I remember I said we had some more we had to do. So it's that one digit off there, 51110 or 51111. That's going from para to ABA. And the next one down was, let's see. Oh yeah, that was Jean asked me to move that. So that's just moving because the object code, an encumbrance from tuitions to contractual. And the next three are utilizing some funds that are still in the FY 2023 Title IIA grant. So moving some professional development is eligible for the Title IIA grant from either school choice or the general fund over to that grant to try to use up that grant. Does anyone have any questions?
You're looking for a motion for someone to approve?
I move to approve the FY 2024 reclassifications number 8 from the school committee meeting on March 6, 2024.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg?
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next one I have is FY 2024 transfer request number 4, and these are all requests from the administrators. And I know originally one got sent out to you, and we had to send out a second one, and that's because the last one, I bolded, although it doesn't stand out too good in here. The very last one there on the right-hand side, I decided to just set up a new account for, within the student activity fund function code for the staff training and travel, only because there's been more of that. So rather than put it under other expenditures, I just decided to quickly set up a new account and just do that. So that's why I made that change.
Okay.
So does anyone else have any questions?
If not, be looking for a motion?
I move to approve the FY 2024 transfer request number 4 from tonight's school committee meeting on March 6, 2024.
Thanks. Motion made by Teresa, seconded by?
Meg?
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you.
That's it for me this evening. Otherwise, we'd be here until 11 o'clock. No.
I know, huh?
Feel free.
No.
Any other topics not anticipated?
I do not have any.
Go ahead.
Do we have an update on the food director?
Oh, we've hardly had any. Oh, so just so that you know, thank you for asking. And I won't take until 11 o'clock. I can't, thank you so much, because I have some good, I knew it was going to take a while to find someone. So I reached out to our former food service director, who I absolutely loved. She did a fabulous job. So she is serving as interim right now. So she's doing most of her work remote, but trying to come in at Saturdays, or she's coming in this Friday. So she's keeping us nice and afloat. I'm taking care of some of the things, the subs, and getting the bills and things of that nature and all that. And so we'll just wait and see what happens going forward. I'm not getting much for applications, but very, very happy that Raquel is serving right now to keep us afloat, and we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping to have some good news to share going forward.
Soon.
Yes.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Any other topics not anticipated? I'd be looking for a motion to
I
adjourn.
move to adjourn the school committee meeting on March 10th, March 6th.
Not yet.
At 8:10 PM.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by?
Meg.
Seconded by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?